public or afforded sufficient opportunity to comment on the proposed budget and the OTR prior to action by the board, I cannot support the agency's misguided efforts to fund our operations. Thank you.
There's so much misinformation in that statement, I won't even attempt to refute all of it, but I will just discuss several of the issues. We started off with the FDIC budget, and had you gone back and looked closely, you would have seen that their operations budget has mirrored ours. When they combine their operation budget and their receivership budget, it has gone down considerably because they're not really doing receiverships anymore, but their operation budget pretty much mirrors what ours has been. As far as the 18-month exam cycle, I think anyone who would listen to my comments either at our open forum, the open forum that I had, or today, or comments that I've made to the press, would have heard me say that we are not, quote, shutting the door on an 18-month exam cycle. We are looking at extraordinary amount of reg relief. It's inappropriate and irresponsible to do reg relief and to increase our exam cycle. And we are also putting infrastructure in place so that we can do more off-site reviews. But anyone who says that NCUA has shut the door on the 18-month exam cycle obviously hasn't been listening to what I've been saying. As far as the OTR methodology, the methodology has been set since 2003. It has been validated by PricewaterhouseCoopers. The staff simply inserts the data into the formula. There's no guesswork involved. I think it's rather extraordinary to be accused of manipulating our exam hours to influence the OTR. I have to say that I'm absolutely shocked by that, by a board member questioning the integrity of the agency.
I didn't say that.
Yes, by inference you did.
I did not say that.
You did. You said we were manipulating the exam hours in the state so that we would get a different outcome on the OTR. That's questioning the integrity, impugning the integrity of the agency.
Didn't say that.
On a 2-year budget, first of all, the 2-year budget isn't locked in. It's returning to business as usual, and in fact, it's doing what Congress does. So I don't even see that that's even something to discuss. And on the failure to engage in dialogue with the board, there are those who would rather complain than participate. The staff participates with any board member at any time on any issue, on as many issues or in as much detail as any board member would like. And if you're not getting that, perhaps it's because of your lack of interaction and not the staff's. Vice Chairman?
May I respond to that?
Sure.
With respect to the 18 months, this issue was floated, and about 2 days later, there was a press release put up by NCUA saying no. Okay, we're not going to do that. There's a lot of pushback on that. So the machine started within the agency now to say, well, we may want to look at it, but here's an excuse. The problem with that, from my view, is that the credit union community is tired of these vague promises. We'll look at it later. We'll look at it in the future. We're going, because we have so much reg relief to put into place. What does that mean? I mean, we have, as I said in my statement, I tried to be specific and give examples. Risk-based network doesn't come into effect for 3 years. So do we wait till after that's in effect? Do we wait till all this other stuff is in effect? So that is in effect saying we're not going to look at this issue for several years. And I think the members of the credit union community, when the statement is made, in fact, we're not going to look at it for several years. I mean, how I have to question what the true commitment is to that.
It's interesting that you set yourselves up as the spokesman for the credit unions. That's an interesting fact that'll be on the record.
I don't recall doing that. If I did, then I will. Well, I just don't recall doing that. Did anybody hear me say that?
Well, the record will speak for itself.
That's fine. I certainly hope so. That's the reason I wrote the long statement. On the engagement issue, I find this this fascinating, and I anticipated this. And so I came up with what I've been doing the last year. People want, what's McWatters up to? I have a list of what I've been doing the last year. I'll put this on my website here. Outreach to the credit union community. Had meetings with over 70 groups, leagues, organizations, CEOs. Held town hall meetings all over the country. I entertain questions. I don't read speeches. I mean, some of you may have attended some of these meetings. Lot of feedback. A lot of feedback from the community. Engagement with the board. Let me address that. We have a law, federal law, Sunshine Law, that I cannot go to the other board members and talk to them directly. If I do, I'll violate the law. So I don't do that, okay? We have policy advisors. In my policy advisor, many of you know Sarah Vega, who's sitting behind me. And Sarah is sort of the embodiment or the paragon of engagement. Someone who would say that Sarah Vega is not engaged, doesn't know Sarah Vega. She's out engaging all the time. The problem is this, though. It's not the lack of engagement. The problem is too much engagement. I ask too many questions. I write statements like this. I'm provocative. I ask, I press, what's going on here? What does this mean? Just because someone in the agency says something, I tend to follow up. I am extraordinarily engaged. Go to my website. Read what I've written. Pages. Every board meeting, I put forth a written statement on matters that are material, with footnote, in detail. These are not just ad hoc things that I dreamt up the night before. These are concepts that have been vetted within this agency, and I've received resounding no, no, no. So what am I supposed to do? Fold? Is that my job to fold? Just to have 3-0 convenient votes? No, that's not my job. So I've reflected in the written statement. I am engaged, and I dare say I am probably too engaged.
Well, the problem is that you confuse dialogue with agreement, or concessions to your point of view. You put things up on the website and then your point of view, but it's not based on any dialogue or understanding, or even an attempt to understand how the examination process works, how the OTR works, and why some of the decisions we make are made in the interest of safety and soundness. And we all travel around. That's part of our job, but we also engage with the staff and share with them and learn from them and understand why they have the concerns that they do and try to be responsive. And so I just want to leave it at that, any board member who wants information from the staff will get it. You might not agree with it, but you'll get as much information as you want on any subject that you want. And clearly some of the statements made here today indicate without a doubt that you have no understanding of some of the issues that you're criticizing. Vice Chairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Difficult transition. This is the most transparent budget, in my view, in NCUA history. Secondly, the NCUA budget as a proportion of insured shares has declined every year since I joined the board. It's now 25% below the level it was in 2000. In addition, the number of full-time employees has also declined since I joined the board. It's dropped by 21.7 this year alone. And to juxtapose to some comments made earlier in terms of examination and saving expenses, you will note in the presentation that 26 positions in our examination field, because of trying to be more efficient, are the ones that have been eliminated. Third, this is a return to normalcy. The adoption of a 2-year budget, like the budgets the agency adopted before the Great Recession, under a long line of boards led by Democratic and Republican chairmen, including Chairman Dennis Dollar, Chairman Joanne Johnson, Chairman Mike Friesel, and Chairman Norman Morris. This 2-year budget will provide greater transparency both to the credit union community and the public. And in the second year of the budget as a proportion of insured assets will continue to decline. I recommended a return to the 2-year budget in the September issue of the NCUA report, and I want to thank the chairman and the staff for embracing might call for a return to the 2-year budgeting that we had for many years. I might point out that many states, including the home states of all 3 board members, enact 2-year budgets. While I can't claim credit for the recent 2-year budget agreement engineered by Speaker Boehner and Majority Leader McConnell, the President, I'm glad they too have embraced the concept. Like the recent 2-year budget deal between the Congress and the President, a 2-year agency budget provides both greater transparency and reduces the possibility of potentially disastrous interruptions in services. In this budget, NCUA will be providing more details on more budget items than any federal financial regulator. We also provide more details and more transparency than credit unions provide their members, probably in all cases. This year, we're not only continuing to set the best-in-class standard for transparency, we are raising it, providing details on all the line items in our budget for each of our 21 offices and not just the 5 largest line items. Our Chief Financial Officer tells me that means we're providing details on nearly 800 budget categories. It's a 5-fold increase from the already unprecedented level of information we provided last year. Now, I realize, it's been noted, that no matter what information we provide, I'm sure people will say it's not enough. And I guess we can provide details of our office supplies and monthly utility bills, but that's not oversight. It's really just micromanagement. I understand that there remains some interest in going back to a former practice and holding budget hearings. So, as I like to go through history, I'd like to set the record straight first. The agency has never held a budget hearing. What it actually held were budget briefings, not hearings, where pie charts and limited information, far less than we provide now, were put onto slides, and the executive director at the time, Len Skiles, would describe in broad terms the budget framework. Then a few representatives from trade groups would provide a 3 to 5 minute oral presentation requesting that the agency reduce the budget. Those are the good old days that some have been opining on should be reenacted today. Frankly, the information we provide now is much more thorough than the information provided then. If someone truly wants to do a hearing on the budget, we could follow the accepted legislative hearing process like Congress. A hearing, I might remind you, entails witnesses presenting to the governing body, in this case the board. And the board spends as much time as it wants then questioning the witnesses. Somehow, I don't believe that's what people are asking for. As has been noted, all board members welcome comments and suggestions about the budget anytime during the year, not just during the special budget briefing or hearing. We hold dozens, if not hundreds, of meetings with industry stakeholders. Both Board Member McWatters and Chairman Matz are two, as they have indicated, out talking many times. So no one is deprived of an opportunity to speak their mind on the budget. With the 2-year budget, anyone with a question or concern will now have these documents an entire year to evaluate those over 800 budget lines, express their concerns, or make specific suggestions to improve the agency's efficiency or effectiveness. I also want to note that while we're returning to 2-year budgeting, the board will continue to conduct semi-annual mid-year reviews, during which the board can make adjustments if a concern has been raised or if a changing circumstance warrants a change in the budget. In this budget, the agency continues to hold the line on staffing, even though the assets that credit unions we regulate and insure continue to grow, and even though credit union operations continue to become more complex. In this budget, we're also continuing to regulate smartly with a focus on becoming more efficient and adjusting to changes in the credit union community. That is why the agency is continuing to cut the number of entry-level examiners and replace them with a smaller number of experts who have the expertise to examine more complex credit unions. It's also why we have a multi-year plan to expand our ability to securely obtain data from credit unions so that it can be reviewed off-site, thus reducing our on-site impact on the credit unions we regulate, as well as the demand travel puts on both our examiners and our budget. This creates a win-win-win for credit unions, for our workforce, and for the agency. It's also a reason for the increase in our IT budget. I will continue to look for areas for the agency to economize and be more efficient without jeopardizing the safety and soundness of either individual credit unions or the shared insurance fund. I welcome suggestions from the credit union community on how to continue to make progress in this area. My policy advisor, Mike Bradway, and I have worked for months on this budget with staff. We're pleased with their interaction and listening to our concerns, and I am pleased with the budget we're presenting today. It would be disingenuous for me to complain about the budget growth if I was raising my own staff budget in this budget. But I will continue to lead by example, and for my 3 budgets, this is my 3rd budget now as a board member, pleased to be the only board member who continues to reduce their budget in every year. In conclusion, I support this budget as another step in our continuing efforts to, 1, provide increased transparency, control costs, and focus on more efficient delivery of services.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Yes, I move that the board approve the 2016 operating budget of $290,915,928 and 1,247 full-time equivalents, and the 2017 operating budget of $302,961,338 and 1,247 full-time equivalents, as presented in Attachment 1. The 2016 capital acquisitions of $10,068,920 and the 2017 capital acquisitions of $13,671,826, as presented in Attachment 2, and the 2016 budget of $4,022,868 and the 2017 budget of $4,095,413, as presented in Attachment 3, for the oversight of the temporary corporate credit union stabilization fund, as required by the Corporate System Resolution Program, all as detailed in the board action memorandum and its referenced attachments.
I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Our next item is the